Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to get started in just a minute. Nice. Are you excited to get into Webflow today? I'm pretty excited. I have a pretty cool kind of site to build today. It's a portfolio site. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. It is 12 o'clock, 12 p.m. Central. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Everything Webflow, where every Monday through Thursday I do a live stream from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time, and we cover everything related to Webflow, how to build layouts in Webflow, how to build animations and interactions in Webflow, and I also provide support via the super chat function here on YouTube. So hello Tazaware, how's it going? Yulia, hello. Hello, hello. Yeah, thank you for joining. It's going to be a fun one today. I didn't quite set up the. Let me do that real quick here. So yeah, I'll quickly go over what we'll be building today. So from 12 to 12:30, we're going to be building this website here. It's a simple portfolio site, and I'll be using Grid to build this layout. It is responsive, so as I resize the screen, we can see we have a nice vertical layout here. And let me minimize Illustrator there. Just a nice vertical layout. And yeah, so something like this isn't too difficult in Webflow, but we are going to cover some interesting concepts regarding grid. So I took this design and yeah, here it is. So I grabbed it from this wireframe. So as I mentioned in a few of my previous live streams, I'll be taking inspiration from this wireframe, and we'll just try to build out as many of these layouts as we can. So over the weekend, I decided to pick this one and build this wireframe here. So fairly straightforward, but they're nice wireframes to get practice in Webflow. Hey David, hello, David from France. Nice, nice. Yeah, very awesome. So yeah, I started these live streams about must be over 4 weeks now. So super happy to see new members come in. If you have any questions about Webflow as I'm building, feel free to ask. Yulia and David, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to help. Also, feel free to write down your personal experiences with Webflow, like how long you've been building and things like that. I'm always interested to hear people's personal experience with Webflow and what got them into Webflow, and what they use Webflow for, personal projects, clients, all that stuff is very interesting to know about. I kind of gave my origin story in my first live stream, kind of talked about how I got into Webflow and what I was doing prior to Webflow. I also mentioned that I worked at Webflow for 2 years, so that was fun. But now I'm back to WebDev for you and just providing live streams almost every day, and just enjoying the creative process and getting a bit more proficient in Webflow. So definitely want this to be an interactive experience, not just me, necessarily talking into a mic or just being a talking head. Feel free to discuss in chat or type anything in chat, and I'll be looking it over. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the build. Let me make the agenda real quick actually. I usually start my live streams with an agenda so we all know what we're gonna do today. And today is Monday. So quick agenda, we're gonna build a portfolio site with grid, field any questions, and then yeah, this looks good. All right, so let me present this, and sorry about this. Usually have this prepared. All right, so welcome to today's live stream. It is Monday, 10/4/2021. Oh, one thing I did want to mention early on, there won't be a live stream tomorrow, and that's because it's my birthday tomorrow. So I won't be here. I'm going out on a little trip, and should be fun. So I'll be back Wednesday after today's live stream. All right. So yeah, so today we're going to build the portfolio site with Grid from 12 to 12:30. Then from 12:30 to 12:40, I'm going to field any questions about the recent build. And then from 12, well, it should be from 12:40 to 1, we're going to have a general Webflow discussion, and I'll field any super chats. All right, so let me just fix this here. Yes, we'll be, all right, so here's the updated agenda. Yeah, so 12:40 to 1, we'll have a general Webflow discussion and super chats. All right, cool. So let's get started with today's build. So Yulia wrote, I'm a web designer as well, been building with Webflow for a little less than a year, and your clonables have been helpful. Nice. Currently working on my new portfolio, Ulysses. Sweet. I like that name, Ulysses. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Super happy to hear that, Yulia. Webflow is an amazing web design tool, and nice. Thank you, Yulia. Appreciate it. Sweet. Awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started building. Appreciate the birthday wishes. Should be fun. I'm excited. It's gonna be my 35th birthday. I know I look pretty young, but yeah, it's getting to that middle age, I guess. Midlife crisis at 35. Oh no. But yeah, no, it's been fun. All right, cool. So I'll go ahead and get started. I might reference this site a bit, but the first thing we're gonna do for this site is start with a navbar. Hey Manuel, how's it going? Thank you, David, appreciate it. All right, so I'm gonna start with a navbar. Again, I'm gonna use Command K to bring up the quick find. It's just a little shortcut I like to use, or you can go to the elements panel and add the elements via here, but I'll hit Command K and I'll add a navbar. So if you've seen my live streams before, you'll know, don't worry, Yao, it's okay if you're late. It's not a big deal. We're just gonna build this portfolio site today. Yep, and yeah, fairly straightforward. So as I was saying, for those of you who have seen my live stream before, wow, it's a very poppin' live stream today. Nice. Hey Yao, hey Shreyas. I'm probably butchering some names here. Happy birthday. Thank you, Giannis. Thank you. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Bien. Muy bien. All right, cool. So I get to speak all my different languages here because everybody's from different places. So I speak Spanish, and that's about it. Spanish and English. All right. So we'll definitely get to the build. This happens quite often where I get a little sidetracked, but yeah, for those of you who have seen my previous build, you'll know that the navbar isn't my favorite thing to use, just because I think the navbar in general needs a bit of work, and it's sometimes a little bit difficult to work with as far as the layout that I want to create. The only thing cool about the preset navbar is that it creates this mobile nav, which makes it really easy to make the site responsive as we get into tablet and mobile. It's your birthday, congrats. No, you won't get a crisis at 35. I'm 42 now and still can. Nice. Thank you. That's good to hear, Manuel. Sweet. Yeah. No, I'm not going to have midlife crisis at 35. So cool. So yeah, I just added the navbar, and the reason I added the navbar, there's two reasons I added it, is because of the mobile nav here, and it just makes it easy to design this layout. Like we'll put this text and this text in the brand div, and then these are just nav links, which made it super easy to create this top section here. So I'll go ahead and get started. The first thing I like to do is delete all the nav links besides the first one, and then give the first one a class name of navlink. And the reason I do this is because I can now copy and paste this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 6 or let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it's 6. I have 7. So now all of these have the class name navlink. So if I change one navlink, it changes all of them. So the one thing I always try to keep in mind as I'm building in Webflow, the main thing is like, what is the path of least resistance? Like we all know there's many different ways to approach a build, but for me, as I'm building something, I'm thinking in my mind, what's the path of least resistance with also keeping in mind best practices? And that's not always easy to do. It's a bit of a balance, right? Because you're thinking, okay, like I know the structure I want in my mind for the site, but then I also have to remember like, I don't want too many div blocks. Like I don't want to keep adding div blocks on top of div blocks. I want my site to be light. I don't want to keep adding extra code to the, because essentially Webflow will output this code. And if your site has a lot of elements and is kind of complicated, then it just bogs down the site, not only in the designer, like as you're building it, like you have more things to keep track of, but it also outputs more code. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. What's the path of least resistance? And do I need this many div blocks? Can I use less? Anyways, that's just a little spiel there. So let me just add all of this text. So, all these are the nav links, brand, UI, UX design, logo, illustration. And it's the same for any application you're using, right? Like if you're building something in Illustrator or Photoshop, you don't want to add 100 layers, right? Same with web design. You're always looking to minimize, keep your workflow clean, minimize, like if you don't need to add more classes than necessary, try not to do that, and things like that. All right, so we have our nav links, and yeah, that's basically it. I will be removing this padding. So I'll remove the top and bottom padding. So right now it's going to look a little janky, like it just looks like it's at the top. So before I get into adding, actually I meant to do this at the beginning, but there is something I wanted to share with everyone that I found very, very useful. And yes, here it is. So sometimes when starting a build, we get, I don't know how I'm going to express this, but starting off with a style guide when building, I feel is super critical. And it's something I just didn't do. I did it on this site, on the original site. But starting off with a style guide, like your H1 through H6 tags, your paragraph tags, all of that is very important and will make your building much easier and a much better process, right? So you're not always thinking what style I need to apply to this heading or what style I need to apply to this heading. So I found this site, and I've known about it for a while, but I recently found it again, and I don't know if they updated this, but material.io, it's by Google. It's called Material Design, and I'm sure a lot of you know about this here, but they have this beautiful kind of system here under typography where you pick a Google font and they'll give you the size of all the headings, the subtitles, the body, the buttons, the captions, and the overline. So if you're struggling with, trying to figure out what's the best size for my heading, and things like that, like try using this and see if it works out for you. Like they'll give you all the information you need, and then you can just recreate the style guide in Webflow. And, here's an example of a type scale. They go through it, like they put a nice grid, applying the type scale, things like that. So it's just a really useful thing, material.io, and then go under the typography section. So while we're here, let's go ahead and build our style guide. So I'm going to go into Webflow, I'm going to create a new page, and I'm going to call this style guide. So the font I used for the portfolio site is this one called Spectral. French. Yeah, David, I think that was the French flag. Yeah, that's the French flag for sure. I don't speak French though. Cool. So, or maybe, do I have it right? Yeah, that's French flag. Okay, good. I guess a little scared for a moment that I didn't know my flags. All right, cool. So we have the headline. So let's go ahead and build out our style guide, right? So we have a new page, and all I'm going to do here for the style guide is add headings. So I'm going to copy and paste the heading 6 times, and we'll just change it H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Hey Eunice, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I won't be here tomorrow because yeah, I'll be celebrating my birthday, but I'll be back on Wednesday. So that'll be really, really fun. Yeah, my birthday tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Just gonna go on a trip and yeah, cool. And eat some good food. I'm taking my dog with me. It's my first, we got our dog in November of last year. So I haven't spent my birthday with my dog. He's about a year old now. Just turned a year old the 29th, September 29th. So we're going to take him with us and, you know, just have a good time. Walk, you know, take him for walks. We're going to another city nearby and eat some good food and all that good stuff. All right. But you didn't come here to hear about my birthday. You came here to learn about Webflow. So, cool. So yeah, so I added all the headings. And yeah, let's just go ahead and we'll read about the typography here. So the headline is 113 pixels. So we just go through and we'll select the global tag, so all H1 headings. And by applying it to the global tag, we don't have to go through and every time we add a heading and go through and add classes, we can just apply it to the global. And then we can go here and actually have to install the font first. So project settings. So this will take a bit of time, but it's super important. Anytime you're starting a build, you know, start with a style guide. It'll definitely help your process. It'll help you stay organized. And yeah, so spectral is right here. I'll install italic as well. All right, go into the designer. Excuse me. Let me go into the style guide. All right, cool. So all H1 headings, we'll say spectral, 113 pixels. And I always like using a unitless line height. So like 1.3. You can use pixels for line height, but it really doesn't make too much of a difference. I just like the idea that the line height is taking like 100% of the size. And that just gives me a better reference for the line height. So unitless is almost like 100%. Pretty much, and then you can adjust it here. So one unitless is like 100% line height, so I believe it's 113. Correct me if I'm wrong, but then I can just add like 1.3 for the unitless line height, and it gives me kind of a good feel and reference for that specific style. And then it's light, so that's the heading. So heading H1, and then the second heading, the H2. Is 71 pixels and light. Oh, this also has letter spacing. So they even give you letter spacing here, which is negative 1.5. So for the H1, we'll go into the more type options and we'll say negative 1.5 for the letter spacing. Then we have the all H2 and this is 71 pixels, negative 0.5. Okay. So 71 and hopefully you can't hear my dog back there. He's wigging out a little bit. And line height. And then letter spacing, negative 0.5. So this is heading H2. And the line height will say 1.3 as well. Then we have H3. H3 is 56 pixels, font weight of normal. So we'll say spectral. And 56 and unitless and 1. So I won't finish the rest because I don't want to spend too much time on this in this live stream, but you get the idea. We just go through, you know, you want to make sure you select the global tag for each of the headings and then just style it using this material.io. And yeah, it'll give you everything from, you know, buttons and everything like that. The last thing I'll add is the paragraph. So the paragraph is Roboto. So we'll install the font Roboto. And we'll go down here. Okay, there we go. All right. Here we go. There we go. Nice. All right, cool. So we'll go into here for the paragraph, all paragraphs, and the body one here is 16 and 0.5. So 16 pixels, letter spacing of 0.5, line height of 1 unitless, and we'll say maybe 1.7 for the line height. Okay, so yeah, that's the style guide, and I did build that here. So this is the style guide here for the site, but that's basically how I started building the site. Nice. So that's an important piece. Just wanted to go over that. Okay, back to the navbar. So yeah, so we're back to the navbar in the brand. I'm gonna go ahead and I believe in the brand. Yeah, for the brand, I actually didn't use a heading here. I think I do want to use a heading for this. Yeah, no, actually it's the logo. I'm not going to use a heading. So we'll add a text block in the brand section, and I'll call this portfolio logo. And we'll set it to spectral. And what did I use for the size here? 60 and 1.3. Okay. 60, 1.3, and unitless. Okay. I just call this portfolio. And also for the navbar, I added a lot of padding. So let me give this the class name navbar, and we'll just add quite a bit of padding, maybe 60. Okay. And then for, let's see, just gonna reference this here. Yeah, okay, cool. So we have the container. I'm gonna call this navbar container. I'm gonna give it a flex setting of flex and justify align to the bottom and justify space between. Okay. And then in the brand, I'm also gonna add another text block. Let me just make sure that's what I did. Yep, navbar text. And for this, we'll set it to Roboto 16 and a line height of 1. Yeah, so yeah, I should have probably mentioned that earlier, but the last couple of weeks I've been focusing on the wizardry method, and I just wanted to showcase the method. I'm still going to use some of those concepts as I'm building here, but I did want to go back to pixels, at least go back for a moment. And if I feel that, the M's and the VW units works out much better, then I'll go back to wizardry. But I think for the most part, like, I kind of want to stick with pixels for a moment, just to not confuse anyone. Like, new users who are getting into Webflow, they're most likely working in pixels. And we'll cover more in-depth typography things in some other live streams, but I might stick with pixels for a moment because I don't want to confuse anyone with like rems and M's and things like that. If your style is using, M's and the wizardry method, definitely continue doing that because it is a great method. Or if you use rems and M's, that's another great method. But, for now, I'm just going to, since we're not super focused on typography in this build, I'm just going to use pixels. And in some of my other live streams, I'll let you know if I'm going to be focusing a lot on typography concepts. But today I'm going to be focusing more on like grid concepts and like I mentioned, the style guide and things like that. But if everyone here feels like I should continue to use M's, definitely let me know. But, I just want to stick with pixels for a moment because they do work. Like, it's not a bad practice using pixels. It's just, it depends on how you want to scale your site, like how you build responsively and things like that. Like you can make a super responsive site with pixels. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Yeah. But we're just going to focus on kind of grid today and things like that. So we have the navbar text, And it's not like really me copping out and saying I don't want to use M's and stuff like that. It's kind of just like trying to just keep it simple for a moment as we build this portfolio site. So Yulia, that's a great question. I work on templates. I'm a template developer, so I don't have many clients at the moment. And I have built sites with rems and M's, but for my templates, I just use pixels because, and you can use you can use M's in templates, but for me, I just try to keep it as simple as possible with some of the units that I use. So I just like to use pixels right now. And I use VW for like padding and stuff like that. So like on sections, I'll add like 10 VW to the sides, which we'll do in this build. But yeah, I've spent 2 weeks, my last probably 8 live streams, just I spent it going over M's and the wizardry method. So just wanted to give that a break for a moment and let users know there's other ways to build a site. You don't have to use these different methods, and if you do use them, definitely do your due diligence as far as research and how to build with it, because it does take a bit of practice to start using it and get familiar and to get familiar with these different methods. So yeah, for now I just wanted to keep it kind of basic. But to answer your question, Yulia, I do use pixels at the moment with VW units sprinkled in for some padding and margins. So Manuel wrote, how do you deal with margin padding top bottom for the headlines, paragraphs? I'm always struggling with finding a consistent concept for that. That's a great question, Manuel. And there isn't like the easiest answer for that, because I struggle with that sometimes too. Like I'll tend to have to give my headings a custom class anyways to customize the margin and mostly the margin, but when you add that one class, it's not adding like a bunch of other styling to that custom class. So it's always good to just apply your default like font size, line height, letter spacing to the global classes. And then if you need custom margins, just add a class and, add a custom margin to the headings. All right, so cool. So we have the portfolio logo, we have the text. Inside of here, I'll just copy this. And yeah, I know some of my answers aren't super like straightforward because sometimes it is subjective depending on the design. But I'm trying to give you as much of like the base concepts as I can and that I use for builds. So like, starting off with the style guide and whatever method you use or however you build, you just want to stay with like a consistent way of doing it. Like, and that's why I think starting with a style guide is probably the most crucial part of building a site. That way, when you do start adding elements and things start to get more complex, you have a foundation to base your design off. You're not just continuing to add more div blocks and adding more custom classes and things like that, and then your website gets a bit out of hand. Cool. So yeah, definitely want to get on with the build. I'm going off on tangents here. So let me go to coolers.com or actually let me just grab the color here. So I do like this color here. So I'm just gonna grab it from this one. And we'll go ahead and add this color to the body. So body all pages, and we'll add this color here. And then for the nav bar, I'll just set it to transparent. Okay, so yeah, we're getting there. For the nav links, we also want to set this to Roboto and a size of 16 and a line height of 1.3. Cool. In the navbar container, I'm going to set a max width of 1440, make it a little bit larger. Yeah, and I like that. So that is our navbar. And if we go to tablet, we have a nice little navbar. We could reposition it, but we'll get to that in a second. But there's our heading. If you had a logo, you could add your logo here and things like that. So the next thing I'll do, we have our navbar. I'll add a section, and I'll call this portfolio section. All right. So Yulia wrote, FinSuite recently introduced their new system and how they use combo classes for paddings, etc. You might want to look into that. Agree, consistency is key. Absolutely. No matter what you decide to use, pixels or M's or VW. Got to stick to your own system from the start. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing, um, I'm not going to say it's not really a struggle because I do want to cover as many topics as possible. But that's the only reason I'm not sticking solely with the wizardry method, because it's a very unique method, and it's not intended, I don't think, for every type of website build. Like, the one thing that a website should have, like, the main components are sections, containers, a style guide, and there's probably a few other things I'm missing there. But once you have those and you have kind of a system for, how much padding you want to add, what's your design look like, then you can start to, like, use your own system for that. And yeah, and there's tons of topics on different units to use and what's better, what's not. But pixels do work fine. I don't want people to think like pixels is outdated. It might be, like, in a way. There's probably more progressive things. I think rems and M's is a bit more progressive, but I think for now we'll just use pixels. Okay, don't want to keep harping on that. Okay, so I'll add a container. So you notice we have a section and a container, but it's good. These topics get us to think, and that's what we're here for. We're here to expand our knowledge on web design and development. So definitely happy to answer or discuss these topics. All right, so I'll call this container, and we'll call this, let me call it port, or just container, and then a max width of 1440. And then for the sections, I like to give a padding of 10 VW. So like I was saying, this is where my VWs come into place. So 10 VW, because once we get to tablet, it just creates some nice space on tablet, mobile landscape, and mobile portrait. I don't have to keep deciding or changing the units across different devices. Like, I don't have to add 40 for desktop, then down to 30 for tablet, and then 20 for mobile. I can just add 10 VW, and I have some nice padding for the site. Same here with the navbar. Just add 10 VW from the left and the right. VW is viewport units, so it's just a nice little method, and I actually adopted this method after working with the wizardry method. So yeah, took some things from that. All right, cool. So yeah, next we have the container. Then I'm going to add a div block, and I'm going to call this portfolio wrapper. All right, so this is where it gets interesting. So now we're going to add a grid to this portfolio wrapper. So if we go to this design, and let me find it here. I have so many tabs here. Okay, so let me just put this over here. So as I was looking at this design, I noticed that these cards were offset, right? Like, they're not all the same size. Some are larger than others. And I thought to myself, how should I build this? Right? If I want these to have different sizes. And you could go through and kind of create div blocks and add different heights to them, but that's not super responsive. Like, it doesn't give you much flexibility for the site. You could use percentages, I guess, but I thought about using grid for this. So I went into grid. For the portfolio wrapper, we'll add the grid setting. And what I did here was add 12 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have a 2 by 12 grid. Okay. And let me add some padding to the section. So we'll add 100 from the top and 100 for the bottom. Okay, so there's our grid. It's a 2 by 12. And then I went in and I just added a div block. So I added a div block, and I call this portfolio card wrapper. And then I set this div block to 3 rows. So it covers 3 rows. Then I added another div block, and actually for this one, I think I used 4 rows. So we used 4 rows. Then this one, I'll use 3 rows, and same class name, portfolio card wrapper. And I can just right click and duplicate. And then we have this one here. This one's the largest one. So I think I used 6 for this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So we have 6. Then right click, duplicate. And this one, I think I used maybe 5. I think I used 6 for this too. Or was it 4? Yeah, I think it was 4. And then we'll right click, duplicate, and it's this one here. Yeah, that one looks good. Right click and duplicate, and bam. Yeah, so that's basically it. That's how I created this grid. So we just have our div blocks, and I actually think, let me see here. No, I had it right the first time. Yeah, so we have our grid, we have our portfolio cards, and within each card, so now we can add a background image. So I downloaded some images from Unsplash. So let me go here. So let me drag and drop these images. And we can go through each card and add an image. So I'll go to the backgrounds, choose image. We'll start with this one, set it to cover and center, and don't need it to be tiled. Then we'll go to this one, add a combo class of 2. And we'll add this one. We'll go to the third one, add a combo class of 3. Go to the fourth one, add a combo class of 4. Go to this one, add a combo class of 5. And then this one will say 6. Okay, so we have our grid, and what's cool about this is I can go into the portfolio wrapper and set a specific height. So I can set a min height of, let's say, 200 VH, and it just expands our grid like that. So it gives us a bit more flexibility. If you want your grid cells to be smaller, you could set 100 VH and use a min height to make your cards taller or smaller. If I set 300 VH, then I have really tall cards. So yeah, I just like this method because it gives us some flexibility with how tall we want our cards to be. And yeah, it gives us that offset feeling, like not all the cards are perfectly aligned, and it gives us a nice grid of cards there. So I like 200 VH, so I'll stick with that. And then in the portfolio card wrapper, so if we look at the site, we have this nice overlay coming in. So we just want to add that to the div. So in here, I'll say, just add a div block. Actually, oh, the other thing I forgot to do, so the portfolio card wrapper should be a link block. So let me right click, convert to link block. And I'm not sure why the height changed it there. Convert to link block. Oh, that's curious. Huh. Okay, so for some reason it did something here. Actually, okay, so I'll go back. But initially you want to start with the div block. If I convert it to a div block in the grid, it resets my grid. So not going to do that now. I'll just add a link block inside of the cards. So we'll set this to, we'll call this portfolio card info. And I'll set it, let's see here what I did for this. Portfolio card. Yes. Cool. And for the wrapper, we'll set it to flex, vertical, yeah, like that. We'll set it to vertical, align, stretch, and justify top. And then for the height, I'll set it to 100%. And then I'll grab the color from the body, just copy this. And for the portfolio card info, we'll set the background to that color, and then we'll add some margin or some margin. So maybe like 20. And then I'll just paste this in each card. And it might be nicer that, you know, the user has to hover to click to the portfolio page. Yeah, grid is definitely amazing for sure. So here I'm going to add a text block, and for the portfolio card I'm going to remove the underline, and then I'm going to call this portfolio card category. Okay, and then set the color to 333, and then the size, what did I do for this? I said 24 and 1. 24, so we went past 1230, but that's okay. 1240 and 1, and then the color I used was the screen color, so we'll copy that. And good. So let me go through here. So we have brand, and then for this portfolio card we'll give it some padding of like 40. Okay, here we'll say brand, and I'll just paste that in all of these. Or it's probably easier, you know what, let me just delete this. So we'll just design this first card, and then I'm going to add a heading. I'm going to say H3, and what's the size of this? 32. So as you can see, for this heading we're going to add a custom class because I want this heading to be smaller than the default style guide that we created. So I want this to be, what did I say here, 32. So 32, line height looks good and nice. So I'm going to grab this text, so serious, and then we have a paragraph. Okay, so I'll call this portfolio paragraph, and there we go. And then I'm going to add some margin to this, maybe 40 from the bottom, and there's our card. So now I can just copy and paste this into these ones. All right, and then so we have Soul Spartans, UI UX design, Soul Spartans, and I just grabbed random names from, like, I Google search like what are some cool names. Marketing strategy, illustration, revolution, and Stratos. Okay, and then we have Skyhawks, Sputniks, logo and brand. All right, cool. So yeah, we built out our grid. It looks pretty nice. Yeah, so grid is pretty amazing. Like, it allows us to do things like this, and then watch how easy it is to make this responsive. So I'll go to tablet, and all I have to do for the portfolio wrapper is change it to flex, because I just want these to be vertically aligned, and voila. So super powerful. Using grid and flex together, you can do so many amazing things. So yeah, so let's go and add that interaction where we hover and the card comes in. Let's go ahead and do that really quick. And the way I did this for the portfolio card wrapper, we'll just set the overflow to hidden, and then when we hover over the portfolio card wrapper, I'll go to interactions, click the plus, I'll say on mouse hover, we'll start an animation, I'll click the plus, and I'll call this portfolio card in, and I'll grab the portfolio card info, click the plus, I'll say move, I'll move it down 30% on the y-axis and set it as the initial state, so that's where it starts. And then I'll add an opacity property, set it to 0% and set it as the initial state as well. I'll click these two, right click, duplicate, and then for the movement, I'll just set it back to 0%. and the opacity to 100%. I'll grab these two, I'll set the easing to ease. Save, so now I hover over and we have that animation. Okay, and I do want to apply it to not just this element, but any element that has the class portfolio card wrapper. So it applies it to every single card. And because in the interaction we're affecting the class, it's going to affect every class that has, every element that has this class inside of each card. Okay, so now all of them have the animation and it looks good. So now on hover out, we're going to start an animation. I'll duplicate the portfolio card in, click on it, and I'll say portfolio card out. I'll delete the initial states, and then I'll just set it back down to 30%. So just reversing the animation, and the opacity back to 0%. The easing is ease, that's fine, and the duration is 0.5 seconds. All right, so we hover in, animates, hover out, and animates out. Very cool. All right, so the last thing we need to do is just add a div block in here, and I'll call this link or portfolio link button, something like that. I'll give it a width of 50 by 50, position it absolute and to the bottom right. So I have to give this portfolio card info position relative so that this portfolio link button is relative to the card. And I'll set the background color here to white. And I do have an arrow, so let me add this arrow in here. If I can find it, yep. Okay, so I'll just add this arrow inside of here. And then for the portfolio link button, let's give it flex, center, center. And I'll make this arrow maybe 18 pixels in width, just really small. And I'll call it arrow. And then I can just paste that into each card. And this lets the user know, like, if you click, you'll go to that portfolio page. And that's it. So we're done. That went over the half hour that I meant to spend on this, but there were no super chats today, so that was okay. So we have our site, and our portfolio site looks good. I can resize it. We have our, I'd work on the nav here, but yeah. And one thing I can do for tablet, rather than 200 VH, so, yeah, the min height 200 VH. Yeah, I could set this, taller if I wanted these cards. Or the other thing I could do, actually, let me set this to auto. I could just add more padding to each card, like 120. More padding from the bottom, and that just makes the cards a bit bigger. So that's one way to do it as well. And then mobile landscape, that looks good. And mobile portrait. So for mobile portrait, yeah, that looks a little bit too skinny. This is when I might set the VW to maybe 5 VW to get a bit more real estate on mobile. And then for the portfolio card, I might reduce the margin to like 10. Something like that. And then I can make this text maybe 14 on mobile. Yeah, just to get a bit more real estate. And for this, I would maybe do flex, vertical. Yeah, this menu button. See, like even when I apply flex setting, it doesn't move this menu button. Which, yeah, Navbar is not my favorite thing to use, for sure. So what I have to do it on this. No, it's to this one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I have to apply it to the navbar container. And the navbar text. Could do something like that. Yeah, where the menu button is here. That could work. I might do the same here. So do vertical. And then do something like that. Yeah, this would require some finessing, but yeah. So that is the site. That was fun. I know I move a bit fast. It is kind of a bit of information to cover in a short period of time, but did want to cover all of it. Boom. Oh, that does look nice. I like it. I'd probably work on the navbar a bit more, but I like it. So yeah, let's recap what we did today. We built a style guide. You know, we used material.io. You know, if you're using a Google font, you can just go through, pick your Google font, and they'll give you some nice sizing for your headings, your headlines, and your body text and buttons. So you can start off with a nice base for your design. I kind of harped on different units again. I don't know if I'll ever stop harping on that because there's so much to it. Maybe this week I'll cover rems and ems because I know last week I covered basically VWs on the body font, but we didn't use rems on the body font. We used VW. So yeah, but that was it. If there's any questions, yeah, so Yulia wrote, any tips for reusing interaction set on combo classes? It can get confusing at times. That's a good question, Yulia. I think I'd probably have to look at your project for that because I'm not sure. Yeah, if you use a combo class, you should still be able to select elements that have that specific combo class, like all elements that have the combo class. So it's similar to just selecting an element that has one class, but you just, as you're building, you want to make sure that if you're applying to an element that has a combo class, then all the elements you want to affect should have that same combo class. I think hopefully that made sense. But if you want me to take a look at the project, definitely let me know and I can review it. And yeah, if you're comfortable with having others look at your project, that's another thing. Coolio. Yeah. And after projects, I also like to make sure that my styles are cleaned up. So you can go in here, remove any styles, like click on cleanup to remove styles, and same with interactions. You can say cleanup and delete any interactions to keep your site nice and clean. But yeah, you can see we built a really nice site with very minimal kind of elements, right? So if we look at the structure, we have the navbar, we have the navbar container. In the navbar, we have the brand, the nav menu with the nav links, and the menu button for mobile. So this only shows up on mobile, this menu button. Then we have the portfolio section with the container. We set the max width to 1440. Then we added a portfolio wrapper. So I don't like adding display settings to the container because I like using the same container throughout my builds. So I like leaving the container the same. Like I don't even like adding combo classes to the container. Within the container, I'll add a wrapper, which gives me flexibility to style different sections differently. So we added a portfolio wrapper, and then we set the display setting to grid, and we created this kind of offset grid on the left and the right, like just by creating a 2x12 grid. And then we just dragged out different cells to create this offset left and right grid here. Then in each grid cell, we added a card wrapper with the card info is a link block. Ideally, you would want the entire card to be a link block, but I kind of missed that step. And also trying to change it kind of squished everything. So here, if I try to convert to link block, oh wait, there's already a link block there. So anywho, so we have the portfolio card info. Then we have the category text, the heading, which is an H3, the paragraph, and then we have this little link button here on the bottom right. It's not really a link button, it's just kind of like a link indicator, if I could put it that way. And yeah, so that's the portfolio card wrapper. And then we applied an interaction to the portfolio card wrapper where we initially have the card move down, and then we move it back in and have the opacity come in, and then on hover out, we have it move out in the reverse direction. For sure, Yulia. Yep. Yeah, when it comes to classes and interactions, it's always good just to, yeah, maybe try not to. I know it's hard not to use combo classes, but if you're applying the interaction to multiple elements, you'll want to make sure that there's a bit of consistency to those elements as far as like the name of the classes, and that way it just makes it easier to apply the same animation to those elements. All right, that was fun. Yeah, let me know if I move too fast. I know, like, I just had some tea, so I'm kind of wired up, and I probably stormed through that site in a way. Definitely want to get good at making sure that I communicate things clearly and it all makes sense. But yeah, that was very cool. So it was inspired by this wireframe, and let's see what I build tomorrow. So Wednesday. So again, tomorrow I'm not going to be here because it's my birthday. Let's see. So many good ones. I'll figure this out. I'll kind of, yeah, maybe we just build this. How about this? We just build a CMS for Wednesday. We'll create a CMS, and we'll create a CMS page with a collection list. You look like the calmest person ever. You got to teach me how. Thanks, Juan. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a pretty laid back guy. Maybe that's why I'm just always kind of chill. But yeah, it's just maybe my personality. But yeah. So yeah, we'll build a collection list for this, and we'll just grab all this info from the collection list, and this will be like a simple Flexbox build, so we can get some practice with Flexbox. All right. Oh, and this one looks cool too. So we can do something like this. Nice. So we have 3 minutes. I'll end exactly at 1. Any final thoughts, questions, comments, super chats? Let me know. And this will be clonable as well. I'll make this a clonable project. So just be sure to check back in my portfolio. So if you go to WebDev for you and go to interactions, it'll take you to my portfolio. And here you can find all the builds that we build in these live streams. So before I didn't make these accessible or available, but I'm going to add every build that we make in the live stream. I'll be adding it to my portfolio so you can clone it, see how it was built, and use the video for reference in case you want to practice. Manuel wrote, any idea what will be announced at NoCodeConf? Yeah, I have some good ideas, but I can't say them. Yeah. I think it's that, what's that? There's probably a clause there for employees. You can't talk about, after you work at a company, you can't really, say what's going to be talked about. And not, I think I'll probably be surprised too, because there's probably things that even some of us employees don't know about, or that we're employees. For sure. Yeah. But yeah, Webflow is a super fun place to work if anyone's interested. It's a very cool place to work. I just got a little bit tired after 2 years of answering customer support tickets. And wanted to go back to, providing YouTube videos and things like that, and templates. I'm having a lot of fun with templates right now, so really enjoying that. I should have a new template out this week. I just released a template actually. If you haven't checked it out, you can go to webdevforyou.com. Yeah, WebDev. Yeah. And then go to templates. And it's the Nicole Nelson template. It's just a simple 1-page site. but just, nice and easy. Some cool animations. It has a nice menu, and I have a video tutorial on how to use it. That's a good question, Manuel. I would go to careers. So webflow.com/careers, and then click on open roles. So it's this page here. Webflow.com/careers. Click on open roles, and they're looking for people from all over the world. So, just take a look. Yeah. All right. So it's 1 o'clock. Thanks everyone for watching. Appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day to spend time with me as I work with Webflow. There's so many things to learn. I definitely don't have how should I say it? I don't have everything figured out. I would say, as far as all the different nuances to building a site, because there's so many ways to build a site. So hopefully these live streams just give you ideas on how to build. And for me, as I experiment with other ways of building, I also become proficient. I have been building sites for many years, but it feels like there's always something new to learn as far as web design and development. And I'm happy to be providing these live streams because it levels me up and hopefully levels you up as well as far as web design and development. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I will be out tomorrow. Happy birthday to me. Appreciate everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you Wednesday. Thank you. Peace.